Thursday is how Friday says, hang on, I am right there. Welcome to Africa Good Morning. It is the Thursday edition and we are happy to be broadcasting the news making headlines across Africa right here on all NMH platforms. My name is Aina Raiza and alongside me is Eshwen Berry.
And today is International Translation Day. Established by the International Federation of Translators, the annual celebration is an opportunity to pay tribute to the work of translators who endeavor to make the world a little smaller place by breaking down language barriers and allowing great literature to be enjoyed far more widely. The work of translators is seen as being of growing importance due to growing opportunities for international travel and globalization of trade markets. Let's have a look at a video about International Translators Day.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories this morning, Tanzanian soldiers confirmed as fatality in SADC forces raid in Mozambique. SADC mission in Mozambique spokesperson Major Patrick Faladi says a Tanzanian soldier died in the weekend raid on a rebel camp in Mozambique in which SADC forces killed 17 terrorists. 2 other soldiers from Tanzania and 1 from Lesotho are injured. The Saturday raid by the SADC troop was on the terrorist base of South Chitama settlement in the Nagada district of Cabo Delgado province. The base was reduced to rubble by SAMIM forces, Faladi said by an email this evening. Another raid on Sunday resulted in 1 terrorist being killed. During this follow-up operation, a terrorist suspected to be a teacher has been captured and is currently being questioned.
Negligence by WHO staff to blame for sexual abuse in DRC. Independent investigators mandated by the World Health Organization to probe allegations of sexual abuse by its staff in the DR Congo cited clear structural failures and individual negligence in a report released on Tuesday. The 35-page report paints a grim picture, noting the scale of incidents of sexual exploitation and abuse in the response to the 10th Ebola outbreak, all of which contributed to the increased vulnerability of alleged victims who were not provided with the necessary support and assistance required for such degrading experiences. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus told a press conference on Tuesday that the report makes for harrowing reading. WHO Africa Chief Mashidi Somweti said, as WHO leadership, we apologize to these people, to the women and girls. The report also said it found clear structural failures and unpreparedness to manage the risks of incidents of sexual exploitation and abuse in the poor Central African country. And the investigators underscored a perception of impunity of the institution's staff on the part of alleged victims.
Air Force accidentally bombs 20 fishermen in Nigeria. A Nigerian Air Force mission to kill Boko Haram terrorists has led to the accidental bombing of at least 20 fishermen in the Borno state. AFP reports that the military aircraft was targeting terrorist camps in Qatar, Daban, Masara in the Lake of Chad area when the incident happened on Sunday, the 26th of September 2021. The area is considered enemy territory as it's under the control of the Islamic State West Africa province that broke away from Boko Haram in 2016. Traders in the area are taxed by the insurgents to allow them to do business, according to the sources that spoke to AFP. The initial death toll was around 20, but the figure has been increasing with deaths of many and of many being injured. Salau Arzikira, a fisherman, told the media agency.
Egypt sentences 3 Muslim Brotherhood members to death over murdering a policeman and a civilian. An Egyptian court on Tuesday sentenced 3 members of the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood to death and 9 others to life in prison over killing a policeman and a civilian, state-run MENA news agency reported. The crime dates back to 2014 when the convicted Islamist showered a policeman who worked in securing ports and his uncle, a driver, with fire, which caused their immediate death. The perpetrators have formed a terrorist cell to fund and attack anti-security operations and to plant explosive devices near the police headquarters, the public prosecutor read. Most Brotherhood leaders, members, and supporters are currently jailed. Many of them have received appealable death sentences and life imprisonment over charges varying from inciting violence and murder to espionage and jailbreak.
Angola promises presidency at the CPLP focused on cooperation. Angola's permanent representative to the Community of Portuguese Languages country, Francisco Oliveira Encoge, said that the country will have a presidency of continuity but committed to the new objective of economic cooperation. Cape Verde has now ended its presidency, and we are going to take what eventually has not been concluded for obvious reasons and continue, he said. The diplomat stressed that the challenges today are new and added, we are going to do it differently, but always within the framework of consensus among all member states. As for the pursuit of objective of economic cooperation, he said that the work will begin immediately. Oliveira Encoge announced that the Angolan Minister of Foreign Affairs will visit organizations tomorrow and that on the same day there will be the first meeting of CPLP Permanent Consultation Committee under the presidency of Angola.
South Africa holds talks with UK on travel and vaccine policies. South Africa said government scientific experts met with UK counterparts to discuss the country's ongoing presence on a list of nations banned due to COVID-19 risks, alongside a decision not to recognize coronavirus vaccines administered locally. South Africa has reacted in fury about its continued inclusion on the UK's so-called red list, which bars foreigners outright and forces British citizens to undergo hotel quarantine on arrival at a cost of £2,285, around 46,785 rand. The UK also won't recognize visitors as vaccinated unless they received doses in a select group of countries, regardless of which shot they were given. South Africa has officially exited its third wave of coronavirus infections. The National Institute of Communicable Diseases has said, with daily new infections falling to below 1,000 on Sunday, about 21% of South Africa's adult population is fully vaccinated.
Zambia owes Chinese lenders $6.6 billion. A new estimate of the amount of money that Zambia owes Chinese lenders is nearly doubled what the Zambian government had previously admitted. Zambia spends at least 30% of its income on interest payments, according to a credit ratings firm S&P Global. Last year, it missed an interest repayment, making it the first African country to default on a loan during the pandemic. The country is now under a new president, Hakainde Hichilema, who told the BBC earlier this month that he had inherited an empty treasury. He said the debt situation had not been fully disclosed by the former government. This included what was owed to the Chinese lenders. A new paper from China Africa Research Initiative based at Johns Hopkins University in the U.S. estimates that the sum now amounts to 6.6 billion. A previous Zambian government figure put it to 3.4 billion, the paper's authors say.
Now in Lesotho, Tampane wants murderers hanged. Gender Minister Likeleli Tampane says she is itching to see the death penalty carried out in Lesotho. Tampane spoke in the wake of the latest murder of a Leribe woman who was found strangled in the veld last week. Her 2 toddlers were found wandering on the road. Tampane said her Democratic Congress Party is eager to ensure that capital punishment is fully implemented if it wins next year's elections. She said they will push harder to ensure that the perpetrators are sentenced to death. She stressed that there was a new trend where victims are raped, strangled, and tortured to death. Tampane encouraged women who are going through such hardships to speak out and inform the authorities about the abuse, adding that it is now time for women to take control of their lives. She said women should fight hard to stop domestic violence.
About 80% of interns are in the job market, and this is in Angola. About 80% of young people who attend professional internship in companies in the country have been absorbed into the labor market. The data was released yesterday by the Secretary of State of Labor and Social Security. Pedro Felipe, who was speaking during the presentation ceremony of interns admitted to the Development Workshop Community Project in the period of 2021 to 2022, said that the statistics on the conversion of internships into the direct jobs are encouraging, as a balance made recently indicates that close to 80% of young people who have attended professional internships ended up becoming employees of these companies. There are several young people with the desire to enter professional internship. In the DW project, nearly 1,500 candidates were considered. Unfortunately, only 10% ended up being selected.
All right, Bushiri celebrates his daughter's birthday in style. Prophet Shepherd Bushiri of Enlightened Christian Gathering Church on Tuesday celebrated the birthday of his daughter Rafaela in a unique way. This is the first time for Bushiri and his wife, Mary, to celebrate the birthday of their daughter since escaping South Africa in 2020. Writing on his official Facebook page, Bushiri was over the moon. Continue to love God, my Rafi. Continue to bring healing to the lives of God's people. And always know that I love you and that you will forever make me proud, wrote Bushiri. Rafaela is 6 years old.
A desperate man takes to the street with placard to sell his kidney to send his younger brother to school. A 26-year-old man identified as Felix Joel has evoked mixed reaction on social media following the sacrifice he intends to make for his brother. He stormed the streets with a placard which disclosed that he wishes to sell his kidney to be able to send his brother to the university. The small-scale trader from Kasumu, Manyata State, said he has 3 younger brothers who were left in his care after his father's demise in 2007. I was in class 7 when I started taking care of them through the business of Mali because my mom is jobless, he said. Joel reiterated that after putting his own education aside, he got into a full-time business and started a stall in Migori, which has been helping him to pay for his siblings. I also had a contract to supply beans to one of the schools, but it ended when students were sent home last year due to COVID-19. I haven't been able to get to it again, he explained. Joel's younger brother, who's 17 years old, Morgan, is expected to join the Kenyatta University on the October 4th for a course in agriculture, education, and extension. But being that he does not have the funds for the fees and the other needs, Joel has no hope inside but to sell his kidney.
We certainly hope that they get the assistance that they need. In the last of our top stories, 4 cities to receive GAP Fund grants for climate projects. The City Climate Finance GAP Fund has released the results of its first year of operations. In the past months, the fund, jointly managed by the World Bank and the European Investment Bank, has awarded grants to 33 cities around the world, many of them in Africa. The fund is currently capitalized with 55 million euros from Germany and Luxembourg, with a target of 100 million euro. The GAP Fund is jointly managed by the World Bank and the European Investment Bank. The fund was launched in 2020 with the aim of supporting cities and local governments in preparing and prioritizing climate-smart plans and investments in order to attract more funding and support from donors. The GAP Fund also brings cutting-edge knowledge, tools, and recommendations and provides essential conceptual frameworks and systems-level recommendations for city, country, and climate policymakers. The GAP Fund has also developed or packaged practical tools and easy-to-use notes for operational practitioners and project developers on the ground, the World Bank says. All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories. After the break, we're going to be talking to an actor, producer extraordinaire right here in Namibia. Her name is Girly Yadhama. Stick around for that. Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. Now, 3 Namibian films will be part of this year's Euro Film Festival lineup. They are The White Line, Kapana, and Kukuri. One of the producers of The White Line and its lead actress, Girly Yadhama, joins us online to reflect on this exciting development, not only in her career, but also for the Namibian film industry. Good morning, Girly. How are you?
Good morning, Ashwin. How are you? Hi, Anne. I'm well, thank you. How are you guys?
Anna and I are doing fine. Now, could you please give us a brief synopsis of The White Line? I was privileged enough to be at the premiere, but for the people, tell us about it.
You were the MC, weren't you?
Yes.
Well, the movie is set in 1963, after the Old Occasion Uprising, which shook Southwest Africa. A black's maid life is changed forever when she encounters an Afrikaner police officer on a routine passport check. Their illicit love for each other grows over time through the letters they write to each other, and they endure many obstacles beyond their different skin colors. The White Line is an authentic Namibian story that shows how apartheid laws were extended to the territory prior to independence under the South African administration. So that's the short
All right.
synopsis.
What inspired the narrative of the movie?
Well, the director, Desiree Kahikopo, who's also one of the producers, she saw, she was, at the time she was in the States, so she saw something on the American civil rights movement. So she's just like, how come there isn't something similar in Namibia? How come we haven't told our stories? So at the time, she just wrote down the name, The White Line. And then a year later, she contacted Michael Pauls, who's a screenplay writer and also one of the producers, to ask if we'd like to make the movie. So that basically inspired the story.
All right. And how has the reception been generally, locally and internationally?
Well, overall, the movie has been received really, really, really well. I mean, if you look at the lineup of film festivals that the film was invited to, in 2019, we were at the 40th Durban International Film Festival, then Joburg Film Festival, Rwanda Film Festival, Hilton Arts Festival, Africa Venezuela Film Festival, New York African Diaspora and International Film Festival, New African Film Festival in Washington, D.C., the 9th Luxor African Film Festival in Egypt, Vision d'Afrique in France in 2020, Alazon Cine in Madrid in Spain in 2020, AfriClap, African Film Festival in France, German Namibian Society in Frankfurt in 2020. And this year in September, it was at Kobita African Film Festival in Congo and Colombia. And then it will also be at the 27th FESPACO Film Festival in Burkina Faso in October. And then obviously it won Best Feature Film of a Woman of Color at the New York African Diaspora International Film Festival in 2019. We won the Kilimanjaro Award for Best Feature Film at Africa Film Festival in 2020. At the Namibian Theatre and Film Awards, it won Best Script for Michael Pauls, Newcomer Director for Desiree Kaikopo, and then it also won the Audience Choice Award at 2019 at the Namibian Theatre and Film Awards. We won Best Feature Film at the African Emerging Film Festival, Best Cinematographer for Laurent Hassemans at the African Emerging Film Festival, and then I won Best Actor of Southern Africa at the Sotigi Awards, as well as the Sotigi Gold Award for Best Actress in Africa. And then it had 5 nominations for the African Movie Academy Awards in 2020 for Best Film in a Foreign Language, Best First Film by a Director, Best Screenplay, Best Actress in a Leading Role, and Best Achievement in Wardrobe. So it's
My
done pretty
goodness.
well. Yeah.
Yes, what a list. What a list. Before we get into the Eurofilm Festival, could you just tell us
Yeah.
briefly how you feel about, the recent announcement about Namibia being able to apply for the Oscars, enter for the
Well,
Oscars,
that's
rather?
an amazing. I think for myself as an actress and a producer, overall, that's an amazing achievement for us as an industry. You know what I mean? Because now we're able to submit our films for the foreign category, foreign international film category, so international. So that's really good for us, because obviously also that goes to show that now is an opportunity for us to also showcase that we have the talent and that we do produce content that is of the quality. You know. So that's good for us
Or,
as an industry. I'm really happy about that.
all right. How big a platform is the Euro Film Festival for both you and for the movie?
Well, I think for us as filmmakers, you create films for people to be able to watch the films. So any opportunity that you get for an audience that you might not have had an opportunity before to watch your film, for them to watch it is good for us. So obviously also it helps us continue to promote the film, to keep the movie top of mind, because also we've submitted the film for the Oscars for 2022, but in the general categories. And in October, we'll be having our theatrical release as part of the Oscar campaign run in Los Angeles. So this is obviously just another opportunity for us to promote the film. So it is a great platform for us.
Wow. Now, Gurley, I've been privileged enough to know of some of the amazing projects and worked with you on some of the projects that you've worked on. So could you tell us, what are your plans? What's next? What are you working on right now? You are a multi-award winning actress. You've been producing some of the top Namibian films right now. You've been part of the teams, Bajo and the Giants, The White Line. What's next?
Well, at the moment, in July, I wrapped a film titled Under the Hanging Tree, written, directed, and produced by Perevi Kashavivi. And currently, right now, I'm in production for an international feature film titled An Platz an der Sonne, which is written and directed by the award-winning Lars Kraume, which is an international feature film that is a co-production between Zero One Film from Germany and Joe Vision Production. So that's what I'm currently working on.
Yes, yes, yes. And look, we're keeping our fingers crossed for both you and all the films that you're working on. Now, if there's a Namibian filmmaker sitting right now for the first time, they're getting to know Girly Adama. They know what you've achieved, they know how far you've come. But what can you tell them to get them started or to tell them to be encouraged to continue on this path?
Well, from my perspective, and I think you've those that are privy that have read the National Theatre of Namibia's reader, I've had a lot of challenges in my life. So all I can tell them is like, it's never going to be easy. There's not going to be anybody that will make it happen for you. So unfortunately, if you have that dream, that passion, just start. Even if it's a question of if you can act but you can't write, or you don't have a camera, or you don't have an editor, collaborate with people. You know what I mean? Because that's the only way for you to be able to create content. Unfortunately, filmmaking is not something that you can do in isolation. I can't do it alone. You know what I mean? There's only so much that I can do. So unfortunately, you have to collaborate with other people, with a cinematographer, with another producer, with a writer. So just get started. Just do it, because nobody's going to
All
do it
right.
for you. And unfortunately, if you sit around and wait, hoping that somebody's going to come and make it happen for you,
Yeah.
honey, that's not going to happen. You need to just do
Indeed.
it. Just do
All
it.
right. Thank you very much, Girly, for joining us on Africa Good Morning. As Girly said, just start. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
All right. We were just talking to Girly Adhaman, not just about the Namibian film industry, but about three films which will be part of this year's Eurofilm Festival, which are The White Line, Kapana, and Kukuri. Lots of exciting stuff happening in the Namibian film industry. And more information on what's happening in the SADC region and beyond will be coming to you right here on Africa Good Morning after the break.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. President Mnangagwa warns of severe job losses and possible deaths if the country does not immediately act to deal with the effects of climate change. Talent Gore has this story and more. Good morning, Talent. Please take it away.
Okay, good morning. So President Emerson Mnangagwa has warned of severe deaths and job losses if Zimbabwe does not act towards the effects of climate change. The president said that it is now the time for Zimbabwe to act rather than words. He said that more action was needed. He said that Zimbabwe could not afford to fail to immediately deal with the issue of climate change, as failure to do so would be very costly for the country. He said if climate change continues at its current rate, thousands of Zimbabweans will lose their jobs, homes, or even lives. He indicated that Zimbabwe was now committed to reducing emissions by 40% before 2030. His exact words were, "The time for words is over, and now it is time for action." President Emerson Mnangagwa met with the United Kingdom ambassador to Zimbabwe, Melanie Robinson, who indicated that Zimbabwe was one of the countries which was severely affected by climate change. We see that Zimbabwe over the past years has been affected by Cyclone Idai and other tragedies, and they indicated that Zimbabwe was one of the countries which was vulnerable to climate change. So now was the time for action and not continue with the words that we have been preaching, but rather we have to act towards the effects of climate change.
All right. Now, health experts yesterday warned that the demand for COVID-19 vaccines in the country was dropping at a time when there was also increased complacency and disregard of World Health Organization prevention protocols. Could you please expand on this?
The health experts in the country have warned that we are going to be in a fourth wave of the coronavirus if we do not act now. We have seen that the country has relaxed lockdown measures, and due to the relaxed COVID-19 lockdown measures due to the decline in infection rates. But the health experts have said that people in the country, the public, are now complacent, and there has been a decline in the uptake of COVID-19 vaccines. They say that the government is supposed to implement the COVID-19 prevention protocols to make sure that we do not enter into a fourth wave of the coronavirus. We are now recovering from the third wave, which occurred during the winter season. So the health experts have said that the government should make sure that people go on and take their vaccines. They should be vaccinated, and they should adhere to the COVID-19 prevention protocols to make sure that we do not enter into a fourth wave of the coronavirus.
All right, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has named and shamed illegal foreign dealers.
The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has banned 30 illegal forex dealers from using banks, mobile money platforms, and mobile money accounts for the next 2 years, and they also want them banned from even using cell phone lines. The names and other details of the 30 have been handed over to the law enforcement agencies for possible criminal prosecution, and the Reserve Bank is seeking the public to help in identifying more such people who are in the business of forex trading, the illegal forex dealers. No details except their names, mobile phone numbers, and national identity numbers were published. They only published the names, their phone numbers, and their national identities in the national newspapers. So hundreds of illegal dealers, they throng selected street corners in the country and suburb shopping centers, offering to buy US dollars or South African rand for cash or transfers, and many they offer to sell in small accounts. We find that the official bank rate, the official exchange bank rates, is $1 as to 85 Zimbabwean dollar. But these illegal change monies, they change the money, they use the bank rate of $1 as to 180 or 185 Zimbabwean dollars. So the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is working with the law enforcement agencies to make sure that they arrest these illegal forex dealers as soon as possible, to make sure that they do not continue with their illegal transactions in the country.
Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have you here on Africa Good Morning. Next up, let's have a look at the weather forecast.
is take a left to the top. If I got it and you want it and you'll never let it drop, all we gotta do is take a left to the top. I will ride for you, baby, even die for you. When I'm loving you, but my heart don't stop.
Now, many countries are using the approach of mixing vaccine doses from different manufacturers. What do we know about the safety and efficacy of this approach? What does the evidence tell us about using a fraction of a vaccine dose? Dr. Catherine O'Brien explains this and more in Science in 5.
We're talking today about mixing vaccine doses and about fractional doses in Science in 5 today. Hello and welcome. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. We're talking to Dr. Catherine O'Brien. Welcome, Kate. Let's start with mixing doses from two different manufacturers. Many countries are taking this approach. What does the evidence say so far about the efficacy of this approach?
This is such an important question because there are over 17 vaccines that are being used around the world now, and most countries have more than one vaccine that's being used in the program. So what would be easiest for countries and for people is to say, you know, one COVID vaccine is like another, and I can have one dose from one product and a different dose from another product. But we don't actually have the evidence for most of that mixing and matching. We do have evidence on both the immunogenicity and the safety of combining an AstraZeneca vaccine dose with either of the mRNA products, the Pfizer, the Moderna products. And that evidence shows that you get a really good response from an immune perspective, and these are safe things to do. What we know is that you get a better response if you start with the AstraZeneca vaccine and then give the mRNA vaccine, but both approaches can work. Apart from that, we don't yet have the evidence on other mix and match regimens, but those trials are underway and we're eagerly awaiting to see the results of the trials.
Kate, speak to us a little more about the safety of this approach.
Yes, so we have had clinical trials done combining with a first dose either AstraZeneca or an mRNA vaccine, and then the second dose, switching over to the other product. And what we know about the safety is that the amount of reaction in your arm and some of the general short-term reactions that people get, not feeling well or a low-grade fever, are generally speaking the same whether you mix and match or whether you use the same regimen. So we do have safety evidence on this, and that's an important attribute of anything that we would recommend is to be sure we've looked at the safety already.
Kate, we're also hearing about fractional doses. Tell us a little more about what that is and what do we know about it so far?
So the question of fractional doses is not unique to COVID vaccines. It also is a topic that we explore for other vaccines, but I'll speak specifically about this issue for COVID vaccines. The clinical trials that were done for these vaccines did research to figure out what the dose should be that people should receive, and those clinical trials have shown that when you're given those vaccines with those doses, we have very high protection against severe disease. But we know that in the future there may be some evidence that says that there may be a need for booster doses, or it may be possible for some of the vaccines that we have to reduce the dose and optimize the supply by doing that. The research to evaluate whether or not what's called a fractional dose, so a fraction of the usual dose, whether that's effective, that research is going on. We don't have the answer to that question yet, but it certainly is an area that we're looking at carefully, and we expect that in the future that evidence will tell us whether or not, if boosters are needed, whether we should use the full dose that you receive as your primary doses, or whether we should be giving a part of that dose, a fraction of that dose. I'll give you just two other vaccines where this kind of research has helped us in optimizing the vaccine supply and the program. This is the kind of question and kind of research that's been done for polio vaccines and for yellow fever vaccines and others. So this is not a new area of research or a new question that we've never explored with vaccines before. This is something that we do for many vaccines to really optimize the amount of supply that we have and the best immune response with the greatest degree of safety. And so waiting for that research to mature and to become available for now, we don't recommend fractional doses, but we're looking forward to that research coming forward.
And as more evidence is generated, we will keep you updated. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to dive straight into your economic news stories. In our first story, Zambians highlight CFB potential. A delegation from Zambia Army Academy recognized yesterday in Benguela the potential of the Benguela Railway in promoting economic growth in both countries. According to the spokesperson for the delegation, Colonel Charles Kunda, who is a member of senior officers of the Zambian Army, the country hopes to see the connection with Angola concluded in the near future through the Benguela Railway. He referred that the discussion about the project has occupied the class time of students in the various Zambian academies, where subjects have been studied on the Benguela Railway and its economic potential. Our country does not have a coastline, and through the Lobito corridor, it intends to promote a lot of commercial activity with Angola, he said. He highlighted the strengthening of ties between the two armies.
Lesotho source on a BSE as results sparkle. Homegrown Pan-African micro-leader Lesotho Holding has seen its share price rise by about 56% on the Botswana Stock Exchange this year, with consolidations in executive management and a 20% jump in interim pre-tax profits driving investor appetite. At a 1.12 pula per share, Lesotho is currently trading at highs last seen 2 years ago, and market analysts believe the price could even go higher. Stockbrokers Botswana research analyst Malehobo Kaelepere told Businessweek that Lesotho still has upside potential. Stockbrokers Botswana's last analysis of micro-lenders conducted in May 2020 indicated a target share price of 2.1 pula per share.
All right, now in Lesotho, government pledges to pay farmers. The government has pledged to settle its debt to beans and maize farmers. It owes 8 million maloti. The Minister of Prime Minister's Office, Kemiso Mosenene, made the promise last Friday. Farmers have been owed since May, when the government bought grains from them on credit so that it could feed the poor. Mosenene says the government will start paying this week. He said the reason for the delay of payments was that the 15 million maloti budget, which was set aside by the government to purchase the food, was not enough to pay all the farmers. Cabinet Principal Secretary Kabelo Lehora said they stopped requesting beans after realizing that their arrears exceeded available money. We immediately asked for money. Indeed, we are facing a cash crisis and it took longer for us to get it. However, promises were made that once there is money, it will be granted.
United Airlines partner with the Airlink to reach another 40 African destinations, Mozambique included. United Airlines has expanded its reach to southern African destinations like Madagascar, Mozambique, and Victoria Falls after inking a code-share agreement with the local carrier airline. The deal adds a connection to more than 40 African locations of travelers from the U.S. It's the latest sign of reopening of international travel in the region following the coronavirus pandemic. Airlink is bidding to fill a void left by national carrier South African Airways, which recently emerged from business rescue and has started flying to limited destination. Airlink, known before the pandemic, the way to get to and from Johannesburg from small town dotted around the country, signed a similar deal with Gulf giant Emirates in August.
We end off our economic news stories in Angola, where Eni and ANPG announced start of oil production at Cabasa Norte. Angola's National Oil, Gas and Biofuels Agency and Italian oil company Eni on Friday announced the start of production at Cabasa Norte, increasing national production by 15,000 barrels of oil per day. This is the second announcement of the start of production made by Eni Angola in 2021 after it anticipated production in the Kuisa field in July. The statement also said, and this year it expects to announce production in Dungu in the western area of the block. Eni Angola is also the operator of the Cabinda Norte and Cabinda Central exploration blocks, as well as the new gas consortium, and has other stakes in other blocks. All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. You know what comes up next, economic indicators.
If you're feeling how I'm feeling and you know I won't stop, all we gotta do is take our love to the top. If I got it and you want it and you'll never let it drop, all we gotta do is take our love to the top. I will ride for you, baby, even die for you. When I'm loving you, but my heart don't stop.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to talk about your sports news updates. Our first story is more of an amalgamation between sport and politics as Manny Pacquiao officially retires from boxing to chase Philippine presidential bid. Boxing legend Manny Pacquiao has announced his retirement to focus on his plans to run for president of the Philippines in the 2022 elections. Pacquiao, a Philippines senator who has been dividing his time between politics and fighting, made the announcement in a 14-minute video posted on his official Facebook page. Pacquiao finished his 26-year, 72-fight career with 62 wins, 8 losses and 2 draws. Of those 62 wins, 39 were by knockout and 23 by decision. He won 12 world titles and is the only fighter in history to win titles in 8 different weight classes. Pacquiao was widely regarded as one of the top offensive fighters in the sport's history.
Saudi racing against time to complete the F1 track. Saudi Arabia is working overtime to prepare for its Formula One debut, an official said, with the track still under construction ahead of the race in early December. The official, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said organizers were racing against time and working around the clock in the Red Sea city of Jeddah. A visit to the track this week showed there was still much work to be done, with buildings under construction and cranes and diggers on site. The flood-lit circuit will run over 6.175 kilometers, the largest and the second longest on the calendar, and will feature 27 corners. The race weekend is from the 3rd to the 5th of December.
Pakistan cricket's chief quits, board says, after tour chaos. Pakistan's cricket board said on Wednesday its chief executive had resigned 2 weeks after New Zealand and England abandoned tours in the country over security concerns. The PCB gave no reason for Wasim Khan's resignation, but said it would meet later on Wednesday to consider the matter. New Zealand cricket called off their first tour of Pakistan in 18 years, just as the first one-day international was due to start in Rawalpindi earlier this month. Their decision was swiftly followed by England's cancellation of a planned tour next month. Khan, who is British with Pakistani heritage, had made huge efforts to revive international cricket after a 2009 terror attack on the Sri Lankan team sent Pakistan into isolation for years. Hired on a 3-year contract in 2019, he had organized Pakistan's tours of England and then New Zealand amid severe COVID-19 restrictions last year. Security in the country has improved dramatically over the past few years, but militant groups still operate along the border with Afghanistan. Pakistan have only hosted South Africa, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Zimbabwe since the 2009 attacks.
Cape Town Stadium, now renamed DHL Stadium as part of a multi-year naming rights deal. Cape Town Stadium has now been renamed again to DHL Stadium after a multi-year naming rights partnership was signed with DHL Express. Cape Town Stadium was initially known as Greenpoint Stadium before it was changed. The stadium has already had its new name since the 1st of June 2021 and was used during the Lions tour, but due to COVID-19, an official announcement was never made. The newly refurbished 62,000 capacity stadium is also the new home of the DHL Stormers and the DHL Western Province, who moved there earlier this year. The venue has been home to numerous events from Cape Town Sevens and also the Match in Africa tennis exhibition matches. It was organized by Roger Federer to raise money for the Roger Federer Foundation.
All right, Perth Ashes test in doubt due to COVID-19 curbs. Perth may not be able to hold an Ashes test over Australia's home summer due to COVID-19 restrictions, Sports Minister Richard Colbeck said on Wednesday. Colbeck told Perth radio station 6PR players would not want to quarantine for 14 days in Western Australia, as would be required if they played the preceding 4th test as scheduled in Sydney. If there's no chance of coming here without prolonged quarantine, it just won't occur. her. The Ashes start in Brisbane on 8 December, followed by tests in Adelaide on 16 December, Melbourne 26 December, and Sydney 5 January. Cricket Australia said it was planning for all tests as scheduled. England players have threatened to pull out of the series if forced to adhere to Australia's strict quarantine regime and have sought assurances that their families will be able to travel to Australia and tour with them. Australia's COVID-19 situation has thrown the schedule into doubt, with COVID-free Western Australia loathing to open its borders while other states battle outbreaks. WA cricket boss Christina Matthews said the sports state governing body had asked CA to move the Perth match forward in the schedule to avoid the quarantine snag. All right, that brings us to the end of our sports news stories. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with your headlines. Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m., bringing you the news and current affairs happening in the SADC region and beyond. Now, if you missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not, here are the headlines. Tanzanian soldier confirmed as fatality in SADC forces raid in Mozambique. Negligence by WHO staff to blame for sexual abuse in DRC. Air Force accidentally bombs 20 fishermen in Nigeria. Egypt sentences 3 Muslim Brotherhood members to death over murdering policemen and civilian. Zambians highlight CFB potential. Manny Pacquiao officially retires from boxing to chase Philippine presidential bid. Those have been our stories.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Thursday edition of Africa Good Morning. We welcome your remarks regarding this particular show. You can email us those remarks. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. We also have a website. It's called OneUp2. We are also on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Africa Good Morning. Remember that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. Play your part. And on that note, it's all my love, all my light.
Until tomorrow, Swereja Kanaka.